Listen carefully, because what I'm about to say might completely change the way you think about money for the rest of your life. You don't need $1 million to retire. Yeah, I said it. And deep down, you already know something feels off about what you've been told your entire life. Work harder, save more, hit 1 million, maybe two, maybe three. Otherwise, you're finished. That quiet fear you feel when you check your bank balance, that anxiety about the future, that voice in your head saying it's not enough. That's not an accident. That fear was built into the system, and right now it's controlling your decisions. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be brutally honest. When you think about retirement, do you feel freedom or do you feel pressure? Because most people don't feel excited. They feel trapped. They feel like no matter how much they save, it's never enough. And that's exactly where the problem starts. You've been trained to think in one way only: more money equals safety, but nobody ever taught you how money is actually supposed to work. So what do? You save, you wait, you hope, and your money, it just sits there, doing nothing, or worse, losing value every single year. While you're working harder, it's getting weaker. That's the game you're playing right now, and it's a losing game. Pause for a second and think about this. If you had $500,000 today, what would you do? Most people freeze right there because they've been told that 500K is not enough. So they delay their life. They keep working jobs they hate. They keep pushing freedom further and further away. But here's the truth nobody tells you. It's not about how much money you have. It's about what that money does. There's a massive difference between money that sits and money that works. And if you don't understand that difference, you will always feel broke, no matter how much you have. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Most people follow something called the 4% rule. Sounds smart, right? Withdraw 4% a year and your money lasts 30 years. So on $500,000, that gives you $20,000 a year. And instantly your brain goes, that's not enough. Exactly, that's the trap. Because that rule assumes something very dangerous. It assumes you're just sitting there watching your portfolio, hoping the market behaves. That's not a strategy, that's wishful thinking, and hope is not a financial plan. Let me show you a different way to think. Instead of asking, how long will my money last? Ask this, how much can my money produce? That one shift changes everything, because now you're not thinking like a saver anymore. You're thinking like an owner. And owners get paid every single month. Now imagine this. Instead of selling your assets to survive, your assets pay you to live. No stress about market crashes, no panic when prices drop, no constant fear of running out because the income keeps coming, whether you're working, sleeping, or doing absolutely nothing. That's the game wealthy people play. And it's the game nobody explains properly. Now, here's where most people mess up. They chase growth at the wrong time. Growth is great when you're young. You've got time. You can recover. You can take risks. But when you're relying on that money, growth becomes dangerous. Because now, timing matters. And if the market drops at the wrong moment, you're forced to sell at a loss. That's how portfolios die. Not in one big crash, but slowly, quietly, over time. You don't even realize it's happening until it's too late. That's why income changes the entire equation, because income doesn't care about market mood swings. It doesn't panic. It doesn't wait. It just shows up. Now think about companies that exist no matter what. People still buy food. They still pay electricity. They still need medicine. Those businesses don't stop making money, and when you own them, you get a piece of that cash flow. Not someday, not maybe, consistently. Now let's bring this back to reality. You've got $500,000. You build a portfolio that generates around 4 to 5%. That's roughly $20,000 to $25,000 a year without selling anything. Now combine that with other income sources, and suddenly you're not as far behind as you thought. But here's the part most people ignore. That income can grow year after year without you adding more money. That's the real power, because your lifestyle doesn't stay frozen. Costs go up. Inflation eats everything. And if your income stays flat, you lose. Slowly, but surely. That's why the goal isn't just income, it's growing income. And once you understand that, everything changes again. Now let's talk about risk, because this is where people get greedy and get burned. They see high returns, high yields, big promises, and they jump in. But here's the truth. High return usually means high risk. And in retirement, risk is the enemy. You're not trying to get rich anymore. You're trying to stay rich. There's a difference, a big one. That's why smart money spreads out, different assets, different sectors, different income streams. So if one thing fails, it doesn't take your entire life down with it, because it only takes one bad decision to destroy years of effort. And most people don't recover from that. Now, here's something even more important, your mindset, because strategy alone is not enough. You can have the perfect plan and still fail if your thinking is wrong. Most people think like consumers. They spend, they save, they repeat, but owners think differently. They ask, what can this money do for me? How can this pay me back? How can I turn this into income? That's the shift. And once it happens, you stop chasing money and start controlling it. You stop reacting and start deciding. You stop feeling small and start feeling in control. And that's when fear disappears, because fear comes from uncertainty, and clarity kills uncertainty. Now, let me tell you something real. The biggest mistake people make is doing nothing. They watch, they learn, they plan, and then they freeze because they're afraid of making the wrong move. So they make the worst move possible, no move at all. Meanwhile, inflation keeps eating, time keeps moving, opportunities keep passing, and their money still sitting there, doing nothing. That's how people lose without even realizing it. Now imagine the opposite. You take action, not perfectly, not aggressively, but intelligently. Step by step, you build income, you protect your capital, you create stability, and slowly that fear starts fading, because now you're not guessing anymore. You're operating with a system, and systems win every time. Here's the reality. $500,000 is not nothing. It's not small. It's not insignificant. It's powerful if used correctly, but useless if misunderstood. The difference isn't the amount, it's the approach. And right now, most people are approaching it the wrong way. That's why they feel stuck. That's why they feel behind. That's why they feel like they'll never catch up. But you're not behind. You're just looking at the game the wrong way. And now, you see it differently. So here's the question. What are you going to do with that knowledge? Because information alone changes nothing. Action changes everything. You can go back to doing what everyone else is doing, or you can start thinking like the few who actually win. And trust me, the gap between those two groups, it's not luck, it's not intelligence, it's decision. One decision to stop playing small, one decision to stop waiting, one decision to take control. That's it. So if this made you stop and think, if this challenged the way you see money, then don't ignore that feeling, because that's exactly where change begins. And the people who act on that moment, they're the ones who build real freedom, not someday, not one day, but step by step, starting now.